So, Mr. Batman, why is Christianity the foundation for truth?
Well, because the God of the Bible is the necessary precondition for all intelligibility and functionality of our physical world. Let
Why
me
do you
ask
think?
you, sir, where
Uh,
does time, space, and matter come from, and how do you know that?
well, let's just say that I didn't know where it came from.
Well, then you have
Um,
an extreme problem in your epistemology. Because the minute your epistemology pisses out and says, "Oh, I don't know," it's no longer epistemology. Now it's just plain ignorance.
well, well, I'm kind of look, yeah. I mean, there are things I don't know. Everybody knows that, right? Like, there are things that
I
I
know
mean.
things, sir. I know all kinds of things. I
Okay,
know where
so
time, space, and matter comes from. I know
okay,
what causes it to
uh-huh.
work the way it does. I know where
So
the laws
let
of
me.
nature come from that dictate how time, space, and matter
Let me
works, and
guess.
I
The
can
answer
I can
is
actually
God.
justify each and every one of these
So let me
scientifically.
ask you. So let me ask you a question. Why did uh space time matter and the laws of nature have to come from the Christian God? Like, what's the argument?
Because he's the only eternal, universal, and unchanging being that is. He's the only timeless, spaceless, immaterial, all powerful, all knowing, loving, living, logical, lawgiver, most high Elohim. Without him, you don't have the ability to justify time, space, matter, laws of logic, laws of nature, cosmological constants of any kind, life. You can't justify that. As a matter of fact, you have no way of justifying anything whatsoever. No position.
What's the
Yeah.
justification for your claims? I only heard
Yes, sir.
claims.
Where do laws of logic come from, and how do you know
I
that?
I'm not here to take your survey. I want to
You're
Well,
know
not asking a survey,
why
no.
sir.
Well,
from
look,
you.
Mr. Batman.
I'm actually
You're not
pointing out
answering
that
Look,
the
your
question.
particular
look.
position is vacuous when you
Wait,
give
Look,
an
you're not answering
let's
any
relax.
questions at all.
Let's relax. Let's relax. Look,
Well,
Mr. Batman.
it's
I
just
think
funny, dog. Like this guy's just
no.
constantly spurging.
One second, Marcus. So, look, Mr. Batman. I think what Marcus is trying to say uh, is that while look, even if he replied to you like I don't know, right? That wouldn't give him a reason to believe in Christianity,
Oh
right?
no, he already knows Christianity, sir. That I don't have to try and convince him or you of something that you already
No,
know.
of course you don't have to.
You were designed knowing the God of the Bible. You can't help that. But here's what you do, sir. You suppress the truth in your unrighteousness.
Mhm.
That's what you do.
Well, no,
Wait,
sure. But what I'm saying is that could you provide an argument as to why, like a positive argument as to why the Christian God is necessary for justification, right? Like, why couldn't the laws
Certainly.
of logic? Yeah, go.
Certainly, sir. Time, space, and matter had a beginning. Anything that has a beginning is known as an effect. Every effect must have an adequate cause. Time, space,
Mhm.
and matter does not work in a vacuum. It requires specific uniformity of nature, the specific laws that dictate how it works. So, in order to have all these things to make the physical world work where we live and where we're having this conversation right now, you have to have a timeless, spaceless, immaterial, all powerful, all knowing, loving, living, logical, lawgiver, most high Elohim. I can prove each one of those scientifically. Now, if you're going to say, I simply do not know, then you are committing what's called the stupidity fallacy. You think
Why?
everybody's as stupid as you are, and trust me, that ain't the case.
No, I'm not saying you don't know. I'm saying like let's just say I didn't know. Now you're
But you do
saying,
know, sir. You do know.
well, I mean, I don't know that I know. How about that?
Yes, sir, you do. You're lying to yourself. Let me
Like,
ask you a question, sir. Do you
well,
realize that you are a contingent being, contingent upon your parents?
if you mean dependent, yeah, of course.
Yes, sir. And they were contingent and dependent upon their parents.
Uh huh.
And both of these groups of people are contingent upon biological laws, laws of chemistry, laws of
Mhm.
physics,
Mhm.
laws of gravity,
Sure.
cosmological
Yep.
constants of all kinds that
Yes.
never change over time. Would you agree
Yep.
with that?
Yep.
Great. So, where do any of those things come from? Laws of chemistry, laws of biology, laws of physics, cosmological constants. That's number one. Where do they come from? Number two, why do they not change over time in a world that is constantly changing over time? Oh, yeah,
Mhm.
that's called the second law of thermodynamics, another one of those laws that never changes over time. And number three, why are they going to be here again tomorrow? Unchangingly so. So, you can ask me the same question one more time.
Okay, so how does the Christian God answer any of those questions?
Because he's the only eternal, universal, and unchanging lawgiver that is.
Yeah, but the point is that like when you're saying he's an unchanging, eternal, like lawgiver, right? Like what you wanted to explain is why there are certain constants in the first place, right? So what I'm asking is that like how does the Christian God make the prediction, right, that the laws of logic or that the laws of nature would be constant?
Because he promises us these things. And he Genesis chapter 8, starting around verse 20, I believe. But in Genesis chapter 8, Hebrews chapter 1, God gives us what's called the uniformity of nature. That things will continue on. There will be evening and morning, summer and winter, fall and spring, until all things come through to fruition. And
So
then
it,
God says that again that He gives us His word on things. It's called a covenantal apologetic. God promises us these things, that all things will continue on this way until they come to fruition. That's the book of Hebrews. So now you have an Old
uh,
Testament validation and a New Testament validation.
until
Now,
they come, until what
not
comes
to
to
mention that
fruition?
over half, almost 2/3 of the Bible is prophecy. Now, you cannot get prophecy without a God who knows the future. Now, the very first word in Genesis in the original Paleo Hebrew is called Bereshit. Are you familiar with this?
No.
Bereshit is Beit, Resh, um, Aleph, Sheen, Yud, and Tav. Now, it's very rare to get other Hebrew words embedded inside a single Hebrew word, but in this case, I believe we get five. So you have Beit. That's the second letter of the Hebrew language. It's a picture of a tent. It's a picture of a house. Well, who's in the house? Any first grader is going to ask that. Well, the Resh is in the house. The Resh is a picture of a little head with a crown on it. It's a prince. Beit and Resh together give you the word Bar. He's the son. Whose son is he? He's the son of Aleph. Aleph is God's letter. It's the first letter of the Hebrew language. It's a strong leader, the head of the house, the father. It's a symbol of a bull. Now, Beit Resh Aleph together give you the word Resh, which means
Uh,
king. He's the son of the king that's come to do a sheen. Sheen is the picture of teeth. Teeth can be to crush and destroy or be crushed and destroyed. In this
mhm,
case, it happens to be both because Christ came to be crushed and destroyed on the cross to crush
mhm.
and destroy our sin. That's
Yep.
called a yud. That's a picture of a hand, a mighty deed. And that hand is actually nailed to a cross. Oh, yeah, that's the very last
Well,
letter in the Hebrew language
let me
called a
just
tav. I'm sorry, sir, I'm still speaking. That's the very last letter of the Hebrew language called a tav, which is literally the symbol of the cross, which is a covenant.
uh,
So right there you have God the Father sending his son out of his holy home to do a mighty deed by crushing and destroying sin by having his hand nailed to a cross. Oh, by the way, did you happen to know what God's name is? Yahweh?
yeah. Well,
Do you know what Yahweh means, sir?
no, but
It means
great as I
self
am, or
eternal
something.
existent creator. But when you break down the letters Yod, Hey, Vav, Hey, you don't know what they mean individually because each letter has a specific meaning in its own right. Do you know what Yod, Hey, Vav, Hey means individually?
I mean, it's very interesting, but I wanted to get back to the
So
topic.
let's go ahead and tell you what that means, sir. It says, Behold the hand, behold the nail. Right from the very
Uh,
beginning of time, God's name has been behold the hand, behold the nail. The very first word in the Hebrew language, the Hebrew Bible, gives us the whole narrative of salvation right there, and not just the first verse, but the first word of the Hebrew language.
Mr. Batman, can I ask you a question?
but before you ask him any question, okay, so, uh, Mr. Batman, my original question was, so okay, so you said that God's like the Christianity predicts that the laws of nature will be constant, because presumably the God prophecy that the laws of nature will be constant. Now,
No, sir.
if
He
it's
gave us a promise. That's
yeah,
not a prophecy.
he promised.
He
He
promised
promised.
the
Yes.
uniformity of nature, that there will be summer and winter, fall and spring, night and day, until all things are accomplished.
Now, if it's
Jesus
the
said,
case,
not one letter of the law will pass from this law until all has been accomplished. All has not been accomplished yet, sir. So nothing has been done away with.